What's going on, guys? Connie Gaines back here again with another legendary reaction to Piers Morgan versus Ben Shapiro. This is the full interview. I love the way Piers Morgan labeled this one versus Ben Shapiro. Normally it's just like a Ben Shapiro interview or some sort of political commentator interview, but no, this one is a versus, guys. So this one should be absolutely incredible. This is on Piers Morgan Uncensored, which, might I add, guys, he's been killing it. You know, as much as I dislike Piers Morgan, he has been killing a lot of these interviews. He's interviewed Tate, he's interviewed a lot of different people. Peterson, he interviewed now Ben Shapiro. So, and he's not friendly with all these people, guys. He's kind of like debating with them. He's kind of grilling them. So this one should be no different. I already know they're going to be talking about gun politics and stuff like that. So this one should be very fiery. The last time Piers Morgan had Ben Shapiro on his show, on his own show, they had a massive debate on CNN. It was about the guns, stuff like that. So this one should be no different, man. I know in the last interview, Ben Shapiro had Piers Morgan on his show, but this is the first time that Piers Morgan has had Ben Shapiro on his show. So he's going to be the one interviewing him, which is going to be crazy, man. So hold on to your bootstraps. This one's going to be like an hour long again. Make sure to grab some goddamn popcorn or something, guys. I love you all, man. Make sure to hit my subscribe button as well if you enjoy the content. Hit 30,000 subscribers. So I love you guys so much. You guys don't even know how much I love that. You guys are just like, you know, heroes to me, man. Honestly, it's legendary. Also, check out my Patreon. I have loads of uncensored videos there, guys. Any video that gets blocked immediately goes there. So go check out my Patreon. It's super cheap as well, guys. Help support the channel. I love you guys so much for that. And let's get it.
Well, Ben Shapiro is here live and uncensored. Well, that's quite an intro we've given you there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
You better live up to it.
I look at that old tape and suddenly I hit puberty, right? I mean, like,
we both look so young.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that's probably over 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago.
And it was interesting because I was at the time, you know, getting very angry about a series of mass shootings in America with a British sensibility and saying, you know, obviously in my country, we don't really have any guns. And I was, you know, hectoring and lecturing, I guess, Americans about their gun laws, and it went down as badly as that phrase would suggest, particularly with you. But what was interesting was when you came on, I thought, who's this snotty little kid who's going to start trying to take me on? And then it rapidly became clear to me you were a hell of a lot smarter than you appeared.
Oh, he's a lot smarter because he basically accused Piers Morgan of standing on the graves of people, you know, using the graves of these kids that got killed in these big mass shootings to kind of push his own agenda. And Piers Morgan didn't like that one, guys. He didn't like that. I know you guys all remember that one.
So we've moved on from then. Anyway, we've had our kiss and make up interview after that. But I think what was really interesting to me, 2016, so 7 years ago now, you tweeted a tweet. This is your pinned tweet to this date. Simply said, facts don't care about your feelings. And if any phrase, I think, perfectly epitomizes this woke era that we have somehow stumbled into, it's that. Because the woke brigade put feelings before facts. How do we get there?
Well, I mean, culturally speaking, I think that what happened is that the value of subjective authenticity became the core to pretty much everybody. So the idea of individualism was taken to its logical extreme, which was, I'm so important and everything I feel is so important that I can ignore the rest of reality. And in fact, reality is an imposition on me. Institutions, rules, roles, the rules of the road, all that sort of stuff, it's an imposition on who I truly am. And in order for me to be actually free, I have to speak my truth. Now, you know, as I've said and you've said, there's no such thing as my truth, right? There's your opinion and then there's the truth. But as soon as you start speaking in terms of my truth, as soon as you start saying, well, there's how I feel about the world and how I feel about the world is the core of me, what that also does, it means that other people are aggressing on you when they disagree with you. Because obviously a shared reality means that we can disagree about things out here, but, you know, we sort of as human beings are intact. But the moment that you start to identify your truth with the truth, then anybody attacking your truth is attacking you as a human being.
Ooh,
and I think that...
Okay. This is going to be a good one today, guys. You know, this one's going to be a good one today. So, basically, you know, facts don't care about your feelings. That's one of his most famous phrases. You know, I'm not like a big Ben Shapiro supporter, I must say, before I get into this. I don't really have an opinion on him. But he's okay. You know, some of the stuff he says is okay. Some of the stuff he says I don't like as well. So, I don't agree with everything or disagree with everything that he says either. But, yeah, facts don't care about your feelings. That's got to be one that I definitely agree with, guys. You know, the objective facts, you know, they are hard to negotiate with, guys, even if they are upset your feelings, right?
That's where we've gone, is this movement away from, we're having a political debate, but again, we can go out and have a drink afterward because we are not the political debate. The political debate's a different thing. To my politics are who I am, or my feelings about who I am, or my feelings about the world. That's the thing that matters more than anything else.
And what's extraordinary, I mean, I remember this, we're going to come to them later, sadly, but Meghan and Harry, when they went on Oprah Winfrey, and she started talking constantly about my truth, and Oprah was endorsing your truth and everything. I was thinking, I'm living in a sort of mad world where truth is no longer factual. It's just whatever you're feeling in any given moment. It seems such a perverse thing for a democratic society that you move away from fact-based, from science, whatever it may be, to just feelings dominating a culture. And if you defy those feelings, you are instantly branded the enemy and you must be destroyed.
Well, there's no conversation to be had, right? I can't have a conversation about your feelings. You're feeling your feelings. There's no way for me to dissuade you from
You can't deny my feelings.
Correct. I can't deny. I can deny the facts that you bring to the table. But the problem is once that becomes irrelevant, then we're just at an impasse. There's no more conversation to be had.
How big a problem is it that at the same time, simultaneously, I think, you've had the rise of very populist leaders like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson in the UK, and others who play pretty fast and loose with the truth. That you have people who say, well, hang on, you talk about the sanctity of truth, but you've got these political leaders, US presidents, British prime ministers, where they don't seem to care about the truth. They just bumble through with...
And we're going to include Irish leaders in there as well, guys. It came out recently that they weren't telling us the truth in regards to some political things happening in Dublin, and people are freaking out, going crazy. So, you know what I mean? Tell the truth, guys, when it comes to politics, and you should be okay, you know?
Whatever suits them from day to day. How dangerous is that to the whole shebang?
I mean, I think that is dangerous, but it's dangerous in a different way. And it's also dangerous in a more consistent and, I would say, historically precedented way. I mean, the fact is that politicians have always fibbed to us. I mean, there's nothing new about politicians saying things that are not true, from LBJ to George W. Bush to Donald Trump and Barack Obama. I mean, like literally every politician.
And Joe Biden.
George W. Bush said that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. There wasn't. They invaded on that precedence, and you know everyone knows what happened there.
I mean,
yeah, to President Biden. Right? You see this all the time. So the idea of a politician not telling the truth or shading the truth in particular ways, that's not what's new. I think what's new is where people are presented with data, and their immediate response isn't, let me bring you some data that rebuts that data, but I don't even have to look at your data because your motivation is bad. Right? This philosophy.
How dangerous is it, though, that we've also become incredibly tribal? I think more than I can ever remember in modern history, actually. You know, when I read your Twitter feed, I think you're always prepared to call out your own side if you genuinely feel there's been some egregious wrongdoing that they've done or a terrible mistake or whatever.
Yeah, I like that, guys, when you're able to call out your own side. You know, I posted on my Twitter. You guys can go over to my Twitter, check it out. The guy that plays the guy in You, the serial killer guy, I can't remember his name, some big actor. You know, the guy with the beard now, season 4 is out. I love that show. But he basically said that, you know, those Netflix documentaries are promoting serial killers. You know, the Netflix company itself is actually promoting serial killers. You know, and it's true, guys. It's very hard to disagree with that. You know, they talk about, you know, in my personal opinion, they talk, you know, a lot about rap music being bad, but they don't talk about violent movies, violent video games, which are way worse. They're like interactive. Music just kind of gets you pumped up a little bit. And even at that, you know, it doesn't show graphic violence like video games and movies do, you know. And even like those TV series. The TV series are the worst of all. It's kind of glorifying these serial killers, making it kind of seem like a, you know, attractive thing to do, basically. Like, you know, and it's actually really messed up. And I'm not saying to censor that, but I'm just saying the hypocrisy is just insane, guys. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's insane, you know. And I like it how that guy, who's a big serial killer, he's the biggest serial killer in the world, guys. The guy that plays in You, biggest serial killer in the world, TV series wise, and he's calling out his own people. You know, that's honor, and that's, you know, that's something to be admired, you know.
But the number of people prepared to do that now, on social media in particular, is minuscule. Most people park themselves into their tribe,
right,
whatever that tribe may be, and there is no moving them.
Facts.
There's no deviation, even if the facts change. And again, it plays into, well, if your feelings are the facts, then if you feel that fact is wrong, well, that's enough.
Right. But the tribalism that I think has cropped up is rooted in a philosophy called the motivism, which is the idea that everybody's actual viewpoints are not driven by their view of the facts. It's driven by their internal emotions. What that allows me to do on the converse is attribute malicious intent to people that I'm arguing with. And it means that I get to ignore all of their facts. The reason that I'm disagreeing with you is because I'm good and you're a bad person. And what that means is that people on my own side, for example, they might be upset with me for talking with people on the other side of the aisle, because why would you talk to somebody who's a nasty person, who has bad motivations? And the same thing on...
Yeah, they try and like demonize even just talking about it. Like I remember I texted my friend and I was like, yo, like, watch this shit, I'm reacting to something. And he said, oh man, you're like promoting it. And I'm like, dude, just reacting to something doesn't... And I wasn't promoting it at all, guys. It was not like a promotion. I was just laughing and joking about it because it was crazy. It was some political craziness or whatever, maybe Andrew Tate or something. And then you know, it's like the news reporting, that's like basically saying to the news reporting like that you're promoting the content, which you're not, guys. You know, it's completely stupid, right? It's like you can't just make that you know, you can't make that comparison. It's crazy.
On people on the other side talking to me. I was having a conversation one time with a very, very large left-wing podcaster. This is probably 2018. And I said, you know, we should really do like a crossover podcast for the midterm elections. We'll do huge business. And my side will be totally fine with it. It'll be great. And he said, your side will be fine with it. My side will kill me.
Right.
And that's probably
But that's
right.
the way it's gone. And Bill Maher said to me, you know, that comedy used to be rooted really in right-wing extremism being comedic. And that was where liberal comics like him could get their material. Now he said it's mainly to the left. It's the woke area of politics that gives him the most comedic material. And he can't believe it. As a liberal himself, he feels just really frustrated that they don't understand how ridiculous and laughable their positions on things have become.
Well, it's driving a bunch of people who consider themselves center or center left into the arms of people who are more conservative, actually. I've made the point before that I think the future of the West...
They are 100% doing that, guys. They're making people that are more maybe center-right, center... They're pushing them way more conservative or whatever you want to say over that side, because it just seems crazy. Obviously, like, you know, the right is bad as well, guys. You know, there's no doubt about that. But it seems like that's the way things are swinging, you know.
May ride not on people who agree with me most of the time, you know, conservatives, traditionalists. I think the future of the West might ride on people who consider themselves kind of traditional liberals, who may agree with some of the left's prescriptions economically, but who disagree with the way they want to get there, which is very often by silencing debate, using censorship, shutting things down. So the question is going to be, are they willing to put off utopia for a while in order to engage in the debate?
Because I've always thought, like myself, I've always thought myself not really as a political ideologue, right? I think I'm pretty centrist and call out everybody, really. I see myself as a journalist, fundamentally, and don't think that being partisan helps that particular profession very much, as we've seen from those who've actually drifted down into being partisan as journalists. It doesn't work. You become an activist. But someone said the other day, you know, are you a conservative? I said, well, I'd never identified as a conservative. But the farther lunatic that the left woke go, the more the pendulum swings. And eventually we all get sucked into thinking, well, OK, actually, by comparison to this, I probably am getting a bit conservative, because I think they're lunatics.
I think what's happening right now, and it's happening...
I think they're both lunatics, guys, you know. Two sides of the same wing. As Jesse Ventura says, become an independent, you know what I'm saying? It's just both sides on the extreme are nuts, right?
In a bunch of countries is people are just craving any sense of normality.
And common sense.
And no one is providing it to them.
Right.
No one is providing it to them. They're taking a slap at the people who are responsible for the status quo as license to now do whatever they want. And so you're seeing the pendulum swinging wildly side to side, because if you're a political leader, you're trying to harness the passions of the moment to get done the thing that you really, really want to get done, when in reality, the population just wants things to kind of just stop. Just like, leave us alone and stop.
Right, I totally agree. And I think that's the majority of people. Right? I mean, today, Rolling Stone published an opinion piece on why cancel culture is good for democracy. And I read this piece and it was so completely deluded, because, of course, cancel culture is the antithesis of a democracy. It's actually the antithesis of liberalism. You can't pretend to be liberal with what that actually was intended to mean and support cancel culture.
It's an oxymoron, you know?
I think the left uses cancel culture in a very different way than most of us use cancel culture. When we talk about cancel culture, typically what we mean is you say something that they don't like on the air, and they decide to secondarily boycott your advertisers, or they go to your bosses and call for you to be fired.
Right.
And that's what we mean by cancel culture. What they mean,
imagine calling someone's boss trying to get someone fired. That is just the lamest shit in the world, guys. My God. Just like lame as hell.
Is, well, we're allowed to disapprove of you. Well, sure, you're allowed to disapprove. Turn the channel. right? You don't have to subscribe to Daily Wire. You don't have to watch your show, right? But what they do with that instead is they attempt to get you kicked off the air, not by dint of lack of ratings or something, but just because they're so angry that they're going to go yell at people and bother them until you get kicked off the air. That's what cancel culture really is.
I interviewed Congressman George Santos this week, who even by the standards of fibbing politicians, I mean, it was quite startling. I'll just play the clip where he admits to being a terrible liar. I've been a terrible liar. I mean, would you be prepared to say that?
Sure. Like I said, well, I've been a terrible liar on those subjects.
Great content needs a great audience.
And this is politicians, guys. Oh my God, dude. Unbelievable, man. Unfreaking believable.
I mean, this guy's a serving member of the United States Congress, right? He's one of the most powerful politicians in the country by default. And he just admitted to being a terrible liar, whether that meant just volume of lies or he's very bad at them, or in his case, uniquely, probably both. But what did you make of that? And should someone like him be allowed to stay in Congress?
I mean, I think that the voters are going to decide whether he gets to stay in Congress or not. I don't have a lot of standards for who gets kicked out of Congress by members of their own party because, frankly, I think that he's almost the apotheosis of what politics has reached, which is I'm going to lie as much as I can get away with it. And then the minute I can't get away with it, I'll just be like, well, I'm sorry I lied. I mean, that's really
As
sad.
a high-profile Jewish man, I want to play you the clip where he talks about being Jew-ish, where he separates the two parts of the word. Just have a look at this.
I'd always say I was raised Catholic, but I come from a Jewish family, so that makes me Jew-ish. I said it to a room with 1,000 people in November. People were hysterically laughing. It was funny to them. They loved it.
Now, the people have already said they were at that event and they weren't laughing with him. There's no sign of any evidence he has any Jewish heritage. He claimed his grandparents fled the Holocaust. There seems to be no evidence for that. His parents are both from Brazil. And this idea that somehow he can be Jew-ish, i.e. not actually Jewish, just ish.
Well, I mean, honestly, what he should have said is, on the inside, I feel Jewish. Right? I feel so Jewish on the inside. So I'm Jewish. I mean, what are you going to do? Challenge my feelings?
But he has repeatedly said he's Jewish. Yeah. I mean, and he wasn't joking. We've seen the clip, so he said it repeatedly.
Yeah. No. Again, I sort of see him as he's almost the apex predator of politicians at this point. He's reached the logical endpoint of where our politics is going. And it is the job of people like you or me to call it out when he says things that are not true. But I think that we have reached a sort of post-truth era, not in that people don't pay attention to the truth, but I'm not even sure how many people care about the truth.
Yeah, now, very true, guys. No one cares about the truth. They just make up shit, and it's just bullshit, guys. It's just nowadays. It's not even like people are based in reality anymore. It's just like you hear something, you see something, you're like, that must be true, and it's completely not, guys. People are very, very odd nowadays.
I do think that can be exaggerated. I do think the bulk of the population really does care very much about the truth, and that's why I think that there's going to be a tidal wave of resentment that is about to crash across a bunch of societies.
How important is the truth to you? Because you've got this huge following now, massive podcast, tens of millions of people watching your stuff on social media and so on. How important is truth to you now, that everything comes out of your mouth or that you write is fact?
I mean, it's the most important thing to me because I have to sleep at night. I mean, it's something that I try to think about as much as humanly possible is never lie to your audience. Never say to your audience a thing that you know to be not true, and try to follow the best data possible. And that does mean that you're very often having to be more nuanced than sort of the politics of the situation may allow. Because the easiest position in politics is always to take the hardest right or the hardest left position, the sort of most pure, most easily understood position, or to just play the easiest game of all, which is, again, my opponent is a bad guy. My opponent is a person who hates your guys.
When we had our dust up at CNN about gun control, for example, I'm not going to go over all that again, but had I been very different with you, if I'd been very respectful and said, look, I'm a British guy, these aren't my laws, I'm just as horrified as you are by these massacres, and didn't talk about gun control, which I think has always been a terribly inflammatory phrase for many Americans. They don't want to be controlled. And they certainly don't want to hear a British accent telling them about how they should be more controlled. But if I'd phrased it as about gun safety, if that had always been the debate in America, how do you make it safer in a country that has 400 million firearms in circulation?
Just for the record, guys, that whole conversation of gun control is just that ship has sailed. Like, everyone knows that, right? They're never going to get rid of the guns. That ship has sailed. I think even in Europe, guys, we're going to get flooded with guns after Ukraine. It's already happened in Eastern European countries. That ship has sailed already, guys. Guns are just around now, so we have to learn how to defend ourselves and stuff like that, right? But Jesse Ventura had a really good take on this. He said that I've changed my stance on gun control I think that you should be allowed to stockpile guns, have 3,000 guns in your house, but not being able to walk around with them. Just have it on the front porch. You can be cleaning your shotgun all day long, have 10,000 guns in your house, but just not allowed to leave your land, not allowed to leave your house. That would make America a lot safer, you know. And I kind of tend to agree with him on that. You know, having tons of guns running around the place, I don't know if it's that safe, like having guns just everywhere. So, I don't know, but yeah, Jesse Ventura said that. Just no guns anywhere, because, you know, being able to defend yourself in your own home seems good, but I guess if you're going around the place and to defend yourself, it's a different story, I guess.
Would that have been a more constructive debate, do you think?
I think it would have been a more informative debate. And the reason being, I think that clarity is very much opposed sometimes by passion. And we all get passionate about these issues. I'm not going to pretend I'm not passionate on my show, or I'm completely dispassionate in all circumstances. I'm obviously not. But, you know, I think that would have allowed for the kind of discussion where we could have looked at data from various areas of the world. Where have regulations been effective? Where have they not been effective? What are, as I said on the show actually at the time, I believe, like, what are the risks and rewards of particular policies? That's where the good discussion area, I think, gets done.
Have you, I mean, just final point on the gun thing, but and I'm aware many viewers who watch this in America own guns and support
I own guns,
the Second Amendment rights and so on. Where do you see the line going? As you have all these massacres and as gun ownership increases, there's more guns in circulation. What do you do about that? I mean, as a country as big and powerful as America, what more can be done to just make it safer?
I mean, again, the measures that I've always suggested are measures that tend more toward the gun owner than toward the weapon itself, meaning that we obviously need better screening procedures for people who have a history of severe mental illness. We have red flag laws on the books, but they're not enacted. I mean, people don't actually practically follow the red flag laws, which is why I'm kind of skeptical of the idea that if we pass some more text from a legislature, that's magically going to translate into better action. What we need is more alacrity from the cops. I mean, how many of these mass shootings have we seen where there are 1,000 red flags and the cops go to the house and then they're told, well, no, we're not going to do anything. We're going to leave you back out there. It's almost in every circumstance. So we actually do need law enforcement to have more ability and will to carry out, for example, when they know somebody is severely mentally disturbed or somebody is shooting a gun at their mother, which we've had a case like that. That would be a time where you actually remove the person's guns and keep track of them, make sure they can't actually get guns. Right? I mean,
see, if I had my way again, when I was doing that debating, I would have had this kind of conversation. I can look back at those and realise I was letting my own emotions override.
We all have these. I mean,
yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? I do think an important part of how we get to a better place as society now, away from this tribalism, away from all this stuff, is you've got to be prepared to have this kind of conversation, which doesn't end up with me just looking at you and shouting, well, you're a complete idiot because you don't agree with me, right? It's more complicated. It's more nuanced. Life is more nuanced than that.
I like to think so. And I think that, again, those conversations can be really, really productive. I try to make a habit. I have my regular daily show, but I also have a show called The Sunday Special that you've been on, in which I bring on a bunch of people who disagree, from Bill Maher to Anna Kasparian. And we actually try to talk through these issues. And
last time I came in, I found it a very surprisingly pleasant experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a short break. I want to come back and ask you the most deadly question in the world right now. What is a woman? Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored, live from New York. Ben Shapiro is live and uncensored. So come on then, what is a woman?
Well, I mean, a woman is whatever J.K. Rowling says a woman is. And
what? J.K. Rowling?
She's right. A woman is a biological human female.
How on earth have we got to a place where stating that simple fact has now become a stick to beat people with? When, from what I can ascertain, 99% of the entire planet agrees with that fact.
Yep. Again, it goes back to that idea that your subjective feeling about yourself must be reflected by the rest of the world, cheered and celebrated by the rest of the world, because that's actually what the ask is, right? The ask isn't even, I wish to be treated well in society, and you can think whatever you want of me, but you should treat me decently. That's not the actual ask. The actual ask is, I wish for you to participate in a delusion whereby I am a biological human female.
Yeah, like I remember I said a video before, like you can say whatever you want, guys, but I just wouldn't go around asking people to tell me what I am. Like I said in every single video, not to be satirical about it, I want you guys to address me as an NFL player. You know what I mean? I want to be, the friggin' linebacker for the LA Rams, man, Aaron Donald. I want you guys to address me as Super Bowl winner, Aaron Donald. But that's not going to happen. That's not realistic. So just if you want to be yourself a woman or you want to be whatever, just call yourself that. But don't have other people call you that stuff. You know what I mean? It's kind of a good middle ground. You can be whatever you want, guys, in life. Personally, I don't really have any quarrel. If you want to be a freaking whatever, You know, they always say, like, make fun of people that attack helicopter. I think that's a bit facetious. But if you want to be whatever, if you want to be addressed as whatever, guys, just be addressed as whatever. Like, you know, I want to be a YouTuber, so I started a YouTube channel, you know. So, you know, do whatever you guys want to do. Like, you know, no one's going to address me as a YouTuber. I don't have people address me as a YouTuber or something like that, you know, just because I do it or whatever, you know. So that's all I'm saying, guys. Be whatever you want to. There's no restrictions on whatever you want to, you know, be in life.
Or exactly the same in many important respects as a biological human female. Trans women are women, which, again, if you refuse to define
what... You've warned about this, and I've warned about it, and we've taken it to... We've said in the warnings, if you take this to a logical conclusion, it's going to get abused. And we had a stark example of this in Scotland several weeks ago with this rapist, Adam Graham, who, at his trial, having raped 2 women, with his penis, and let's be graphic about it.
Her penis.
Well, this is the point. Yeah, he then turned up as Isla Bryson and said, I'm now a woman. So that's him before. And then he comes along as Isla Bryson there. And the game plan, according to his ex-wife, is, well, he just wants to get into a women's prison, which is obviously what his game plan was. And he got into one, put into a woman.
I didn't hear about this. Guys, he's just afraid because if you're a rapist or something and you go into a male prison, you're going to die, man. You know, they're going to plot on you, you know, you're going to die, like, so.
Prison where there are women there who are vulnerable.
Oh, and that as well, guys. Like, he's trying to get into women's prison to do more. Bro, this is just insane, bro. What the? I've never even seen anything like this. What is going on, bro?
To attacks from people like him. That, to me, showed the insanity of this. We had a leader, Nicola Sturgeon, been leader of Scotland for 8 years, who supported this limitless gender identity nonsense and lost her job, actually, I think, as a direct consequence of this.
Damn.
I mean, let's see what she said, and I'll play it to you.
The question is, are all trans women women? You haven't answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with
here.
That's
the question I'm asking.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
I think that interview cost her job, because when I watched that, it went on for about 50 seconds. It was jaw-dropping, because actually her ideology about this was just cruelly exposed as being completely ridiculous.
Well, it's an emperor's new clothes kind of thing. And again, when that happens to politicians who are supposed to supposedly traffic in fact, it makes it very difficult for them. And so when you take a completely logically unsustainable position, like trans women are women, but some of those women are going to be housed with the men, which is what she does in that clip, everybody can see how ridiculous it is. And it exposes the ideology for what it is, which is baseless and nonsense and extraordinarily negative. Because again, if you undermine societal perceptions of truth, we're supposed to be living in this terrible time of misinformation and disinformation. I can't think of anything worse in terms of misinformation than the idea that a biological man is in fact a female.
And when you see what's happening in sport, it's even more absurd, where you see 6'3" swimmers, formerly male swimmers, dominating the women.
I'm 6'3". I think that guy that was competing in swim was like 6'3", like 220 pounds. Dude, like, what? Dude, that's a jacked human being. Like, there is no female. Well, is there any females that are like that? I don't think so, guys. If you're 220 pounds lean as a man, you're jacked, dude. Jacked, bro.
Women's sport. And you think, well, where does this leave women's sport? If you just allow this to continue, ultimately, women's sport will get destroyed.
I mean, honestly, the most frightening part of this to me is not even sort of the direct consequences of this. And some of it is directed at kids, right? I mean, we are teaching kids in the United States who are 5, 6, 7 years old about gender fluidity, about how boys can become girls, which kids are vulnerable. Kids need to be protected from nonsense. And kids actually need rules and expectations. And basically saying to them that you can be a member of the opposite sex is insane. And what we've seen, predictably enough, from young people, from teenagers, is a radical, skyrocketing, increasing rate of people who are identifying as trans or gender non-binary, and then, not shockingly, at the exact same time, a rapid rise in suicidal ideation and depression and confusion. None of that is a shock. This is all a social contagion. And there's never been anything remotely like this.
Well, there was the scandal of the Tavistock Clinic in London, which, you know, anyone who raised any concerns about this was immediately branded transphobic, which put people off raising concerns. But it turned out 97% of the young kids that were sent there for this gender reassignment turned out to have other issues, from autism to depression. 97%. And what they really needed was an adult to be adult about this and say, well, before we irrevocably change your body, and cut you to pieces. We're actually going to have a proper conversation about these other issues you've got, right?
Exactly. But yeah, again, I think this is part of a broader attack on the notion of truth and an attack on institutions is really what it is in the end. Because the question is, why is it so important to teach kids who are 5, 6, 7 years old about being gender non-binary or trans? Again, there is an actual condition called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder, and some people suffer from it. It's a very small percentage of the population. It is not 30, 40%, 20%, 10%, 5% of the population, but it does exist, obviously, and those people are suffering, and we should try to find ways to help them, whether that is in the medical context with regard to therapy or whether we're talking about, just families treating them well. But that is not the same thing as indoctrinating entire generations of people and forcing all of society to go along with it. I mean, this is the real issue.
Right.
You're asking all of society to tell a lie in the name of sensitivity. Well, once you've done that with any issue, you can do that with pretty much every issue.
Well, we saw it with the ridiculous farce of the Roald Dahl books, all having this sensitivity reading, removing hundreds and hundreds of words and phrases from this.
That came out, the Roald Dahl books, they started to ask them, I just saw, I was told yesterday by a friend, they're trying to remove all the words and all the stuff that was insulting. I mean, I don't know, it's a bit kind of sensitive, but I don't really give a shit about that. So, I mean, Roald Dahl, I mean, it's just like...
From this, iconic author, he's sold 300 million books. Suddenly they're rewriting this stuff. And some of the rewrites were so completely ridiculous. One where tractors are referred to as black. They had to change that because somehow you can't have a black tractor. Well, what if the tractor's black?
One of the real problems here is that the modern context cannot understand why kids would read Roald Dahl. That really is the major issue.
Right.
So I read Roald Dahl to my kids. I just got through, I think, pretty much his entire corpus with my 6-year-old. And
they're extraordinary books.
Kids love it.
Of course.
Because the books are mean. Because the books are mean, right? The books are about life is a rough place where people are mean to you and social expectations are set for you. And people will talk to you
about
Which is
a great preparation for what the actual world is like.
Correct.
Right? Whereas now you move to a place where even egg and spoon races have been banned in England, for example, at schools, because they encourage too much aggression amongst the kids who want to win. It's like...
What? What are they talking about, bro? Too much aggression to win. That's good.
Well, where does that leave you then? So kids get taught everybody wins. You all get a participation prize. Once you have that mindset, where's the preparation for the real war? That's
right. Well, it's a war against reality. And the reality is that, for example, in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, being fat is not as good for you as not being fat, right? If you're Augustus Gloop, it turns out that you probably shouldn't overeat, but this is considered mean. So we're just going to cut the word fat.
Right, but the reader, the sensitivity reader said that...
They called it enormous, right?
Yes, you couldn't be fat, but you could be enormous. What the hell are you talking...
That's actually worse, man. Enormous. You're a freaking whale, I'm like, what the hell? That's way worse.
Talking about.
You can't wipe that away. But again, I think that's setting up a predicate for a broader ideological shift, which is any problems you experience in your life are through no volition of your own or any action of your own. You're not responsible for your own actions. Society at large is responsible for your actions for setting up unrealistic standards of beauty. Or society is responsible for setting up some sort of sensitivity to you as a human being.
What about the damage it's done, for example, I think a lot of damage to being male, being a man, being masculine, that everything is now characterized as toxic masculinity.
Absolutely. I mean,
somebody actually called me that before in real life. I was like, yeah, so what? Dude, you can't be toxic masculinity. And I think it was in referral to me wanting to go to the gym or something. Bro, you guys, I'm not making, bro, no cap. Like, you can't make this up, guys. Come on.
The effect on men, and by the way, by proxy on women, because it turns out that women actually kind of like masculine men.
Of course.
In fact, all of human procreation.
You know what I mean? Ben Shapiro basically just telling us that water is wet right there. Women like masculine men. Well, abso-friggin-lutely, guys.
Is rooted in this essential biological fact. The destruction of men in the West is the great story of the last 40 years, which is men basically somehow got the patriarchy was so clever that they somehow convinced women that sexual liberation was actually the most wonderful thing for women. But as it turns out, it actually backfired, and it ended up destroying men, because men do need marriage. Men need roles. Men need actual things to do in the course of their lifetime. And the thing that most men did for virtually all of human history was get married, have kids, protect and defend your wife and kids. That was the role. And you were trained to do this from the time that you were a small kid. It's what, I have 3 kids going on 4. I train my kids to do this now. I talk to them about how many kids do you want to have? What kind of job do you want to have? How do you want to bring up those kids? They're small. You train kids to be adults because you know what kids want? They want to be adults. And what they want is a path from how I get to point A, being a child, to being an adult. But we as a society have completely destroyed that path because we've said that adulting is now, number one, a verb. And number two, we've said that being an adult is somehow no longer required of you. Society is going to take care of you. No matter what problem you have, it's
people acting like, big kids, basically. People acting like, and I'm not talking about your attitude towards things, as you can be childish towards things, but in terms of like realities in life and shit, it's just, you can't be like that, you know what I mean? Because there's certain things that you have to do, man, you know?
everybody else's job to fix all of the rules of society around you.
Can you see why people like Andrew Tate got such traction?
Yes. So what I've said about Andrew Tate is that I would say that 75% of Andrew Tate's diagnoses of the problem are pretty correct.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I would say that a lot of his prescriptions are completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
So he will say men have lost their role in the world, and then what he will model is cam girls. It's like, well, that's not actually the solution. But what you're saying about the problem of men losing their role and men needing to be,
I don't think he said that, not to be defending Tate at every single corner, but he said that men lost masculinity, so like hit the gym, like try to get a job that you like, try not to be like a fucking little bitch in your life, like, stand up for yourself, etc., etc. He doesn't really say anything about cam girls. Like, he actually said that's a dead business. Don't do that. That's like 15-year-old business. He's saying get money, become masculine, like, do these things. I think people like catch him wrong, but that's just me, guys. I'm kind of not defending him in every role. I don't want to be kissing his ass at every role, but that's just how I see it.
Masculine, and men needing to want to win, and men needing to cultivate an ability to go out and succeed and thrive in the world. All of that is 100% true. I just think that he himself on a personal level wasn't providing a model of that. To me, a model of that is a guy who is married, who has kids, who lives in the community, who betters the community he lives in, who hires people, creates a business. Like, these are the things that, historically speaking, did define manhood. And now they no longer define manhood, and men are left
I think
bereft.
that you can chart the moment of deterioration for the moment James Bond started crying. Right? It's like, you take even Bond and emasculate him. It's like he has to be in touch with his feelings. Why? Why can't he just shoot people and drink martinis and seduce women? And what's wrong with that?
Right. Well, that is, again, a cultural move. And you're right, against masculinity in pretty much every sphere. And the conflation of masculinity, which is good, with toxic masculinity, that all masculinity is bad. And so we need to feminize society overall. We don't need to feminize society overall any more than we need to masculinize society overall. What we need is for men to be men and women to be women. And that doesn't mean that women are barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. As I've said many times, my wife is a doctor, right? What it does mean is that there are essential qualities to being a woman that are different from many of the essential qualities to being a man. And these are important.
Here's one part of all this debate which I disagree with you about. So you don't agree with gay marriage or with gay parenting. I don't want to misquote you, but I think that's your position. Now, I would say that reading the rest of your views on stuff, you're very about fairness and equality for all, right? How does that fit in there? Why shouldn't two men who are gay actually be able to bring a child up? Why shouldn't they if they want to get married? How is it equal or fair for them to be excluded?
So we can take those issues one by one. So marriage is a societal institution. The question is which relationships society chooses to sanctify. So I'm not in favor of, for example, laws that criminalize homosexual activity or two men living together or two men making a lifelong commitment to one another in whatever context they wish to do that. What I'm objecting to is the idea that marriage as a term is equally applicable to relationships that are designed to produce the future generation and then raise them, as opposed to two people who love each other. The fundamental redefinition of marriage actually happened before same-sex marriage, within heterosexual marriage. Away from the purpose of heterosexual marriage is man, woman, child, to two people who love each other. Once you do that, then that obviously is going to encompass things like two men or two women, but it has no limiting principle because then it could be any group of people who love each other. And I don't think that the government has a fundamental role in propagating relationships other than ones that have externalities that benefit society. And the chief externality that benefits society from marriage is having children and children raised largely with their biological parents. As far as gay parenting, what I've said is that there are sort of hierarchies of options, meaning that the ideal is man, woman, child. And then, if you can't fulfill that ideal, then there's obviously gradations. I would rather that two gay men are raising a child than have that child be in an orphanage, for example. So it's not as though the alternatives are always, the ones that I would want.
But shouldn't they be allowed to have the same just rights in law to what straight couples would have?
Well, I mean,
both
it's more benefits than rights, right? If you're talking about a right, what you're talking about is a government non-intervention with particular activity. Now, when it comes to children, we obviously do things to protect children or provide them with
I've seen gay parents who are fantastic parents. I've seen gay parents who I think are not fantastic parents.
Sure.
I've seen a lot of straight parents who are awful, and I've seen some great straight parents. I don't really see any particular distinction about what combination you have as your parents.
So I do, and the reason I do is because, again, I think there is a fundamental distinction between woman and man, and what.
Yeah, he thinks that it's. I don't know what I particularly agree with this. I think Ben Shapiro thinks that men and women should be raising the kid, and it's better than 2 men or 2 women. It's interesting. You have to do a study on that.
What that means is that mothers and fathers are both necessary. And so the idea that 2 men can simply supplant a man and a woman on a generic average level,
Well,
I don't think is true.
they're supplanting. What they're doing, this is what they are. I mean, you don't think that gay people become gay, presumably, right?
Well, I mean, I think that the notion that everyone who is gay was always gay from the time that they were born, I don't think that the data back that per se, because we are seeing rising levels, for example, across society of people identifying in a particular way. So there is some fluidity to sexual behavior and sexual activity. There's less fluidity probably to sexual orientation.
If you assume that the majority,
the
majority of gay people, male and female, are born gay, right? If you take that as a basic premise, the majority are, which I absolutely believe. I'm just not sure how it's fair or equitable to deny them the same rights to their relationship status or to parenting that you would give to straight people.
So again, I really don't think that has anything to do with being born or not born in a particular way. I think even if they were not born in a particular way, that the government should not criminalize private activity. What I do think is that if we are talking about the benefits that a government is giving in order to propagate childbearing and rearing within the context of the biological parents, which is, again, what marriage originally was supposed to be, which is why marriage was government-sponsored.
What would you do if one of your kids, they're all very young, so you have no idea, but if one of your kids turned out to be gay and wanted to get married, would you be tough enough as a dad to say, you can't do that?
I mean, I would oppose that so religion. So again, marriage exists in a few different. Religious. So marriage exists in a couple of different iterations. One is religious marriage, which is kind of what I care about, and then there is governmental sanctioned marriage, which is a public policy question.
Right.
When it comes to religious marriage, no, I'm not in favor of my religion sanctifying same-sex couples, specifically because, again, my religion propagates the idea that man, woman, and child is the model for families.
I want to see what people say against that, man. I want to see what people say against the religion thing, because I know a lot of people start to get hush-hush when they talk about religion. You know, they do, man. You know, try and say that his religion is bad or something, you guys. People won't contest that, though, you know, because they don't want to contest religion and stuff.
Let's take a break. I want to come back and talk to you about the big question for Republicans. Trump v. DeSantis. What's going to happen? Who's going to win? Is Biden going to run again? And does age matter? Back to Piers Morgan Uncensored live.
I don't know, can Biden run again? Biden's actually grand, but I don't know, can he win again, because that dude is old, bro.
From New York City, Ben Shapiro is still with me live and uncensored. Ben, he got a 4th child coming along. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have 4 as well. Disturbing report in the New York Post today that Peppa Pig is having disturbing for you, not for me, having a weird effect on American children. They're all beginning to speak in English accents.
Well, listen, I speak in a friggin' stupid... Well, a lot of people say I speak in an American accent, but I actually don't. If you talk to me in real life, I actually speak in a very, kind of Irish accent, but with a few words that are American, because the words to me in my head, they just don't sound... when I say them, they don't sound that good. And also, obviously, watching too much online content. That is actually so funny, though. I didn't know about that. Peppa Pig effect has kids speaking in British accents during pandemic. I mean, probably. Guys, the globalization of the internet is just making people just all one. There's going to be a one world in the next 100 years for sure.
Well,
has this happened to you, and how do you feel about this?
I mean, it hasn't happened to me. I do feel like this is a subversive British attempt to reverse the results of the American Revolution. This would be the second in the course of the last few years. You sent us Prince Harry, apparently, in an attempt to conquer all. And he and his wife, or she was going to become president, he was going to become first lady or first gentleman.
Can you even imagine if those two? We're going to come to those two in the last block, because I can't get there before then. It's just too distressing. Let's talk about American politics. Trump v. DeSantis is interesting because
I kind of wanted to get his take on that, because globalization is a really funny thing that a lot of people just aren't seeing. Especially in Ireland, we don't really see we see a massive amount of globalization, but people don't really talk about it at all. It's just so oh yeah, it's whatever. They think that the culture is not going to get destroyed. Guys, every bit of culture that we have in Ireland is just going to turn into America and Canada, like I saw when I was there. There's going to be no culture. And I don't think Ireland really has a super amount of culture anyway. A lot of people would kill me for saying that, we do have a lot of culture. I don't mean to say that, but in terms of what we used to have, let's say 50 years ago, everyone's talking about, whatever, music and stuff like that. Kids don't listen to friggin', or, people, young adults, we don't listen to friggin' music from Ireland. We listen to American and English music, guys. We don't listen to that bullshit, you know what I mean? We listen to some Irish rappers now coming out. Irish rappers will actually push up Irish culture again. I will push up Irish culture because I'm going to live here and promote Irish culture. You understand? But people hate on that. You know, they just say, oh, Chris is a fucking American accent. Man, lose that shit. Let's get it.
Still wields a lot of power in the Republican Party. But DeSantis is pretty nearly half his age. He's got all this dynamism now, very successful in the midterms, really doing a good job in Florida. How do you see this playing out? Because they've got to work it out, I think, to have a success in 2024.
I'm not sure that they have to work it out. I don't think President Trump is really capable of working it out with people he sees as potential or real rivals to him. That's sort of not his.
Did DeSantis
MO.
beat him, do you think?
Yes. And I think the reason that DeSantis can beat him is because Donald Trump is very charming when he's winning, and when he is losing, he just seems whiny. And that's a real problem for him. So after 2020, when he maintained that he won and he had not, I think a lot of Republicans were willing to grant him the premise, which was, okay, you pulled off this miracle in 2016. You're the only man who can win. So how could he possibly lose in 2020? If you say you won, okay, fine. And then the 2021 elections happen in Georgia, and essentially he contributes to the loss of 2 Senate seats in Georgia.
Yeah.
And then the 2022 elections happen, and pretty much all of his hand-picked candidates in the Senate then proceed to lose.
Yeah.
And a lot of Republicans look at this and they say, well, listen, we have a lot of warm feelings toward you personally, but we can't keep losing to these people. And so we need something new. We need somebody who wins. And so when they look at the board, the person who's putting the most W's on the board right now is DeSantis in Florida. I mean, in the same election where Republicans wildly underperformed, there was a red wave, but it only hit one state. It hit the state where I happen to live. It hit Florida, and it was a tsunami.
And I've been to Florida a lot recently, and they love him in Florida.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got Democrats who are voting for him and independents who are voting for him. He took a state that he'd won in 2018 by 0.4 percentage points, and he won it by 20 points in the last election cycle.
Joe Biden, if he runs again and wins, he would be 86 by the end of that term. Is he? I mean, he's already the oldest president in history.
Whoa.
And showing a lot of signs of mental decline. Let's be kind about it. I mean, he fell over on the plane again today. I don't know if we got that clip, but it's just when you see these moments, I think we've got to hear. This is him
It's hard to
over
watch.
in Europe. It is hard to watch because this happens quite regularly, and it's not just physical stumbles, it's verbal as well. Do you think he's going to run again?
Yes. I think they'll have to staple him upright on a horse and run him. And they will, because I don't think that they want the internecine warfare of a bunch of also-rans. I mean, backing him up is the worst politician ever cobbled together in a laboratory, Kamala Harris.
I mean, she is awful.
I mean, she makes Hillary Clinton look like the apotheosis of charm, and she's backing him up. And then you have Pete Buttigieg, who is busily destroying his own reputation over this East Palestine train spill. I mean,
how he could not go down there for 3 weeks? It's just absolutely breathtaking. So Donald Trump has gone down there today just to, be the hero. And you think, where is the transport secretary?
Especially if you have presidential aspirations, the way that
And he keeps
Buttigieg
saying,
does.
I'm planning on going. Well, when?
Right. It's not that hard. I mean, you just go.
Yes.
I mean, but
get on a plane and you turn up and you know.
It's always a bad sign when you know the name of the transportation secretary, right? There are certain departments in the government where you just don't know anybody's name. Transportation is one of them. But after presiding over the supply chain problems and then the railroad strike and then the East Palestine issue and the airlines, I mean, he's had a bad run here. And so if you're the Democratic Party and you're looking at the next batch of people,
I think he's done himself in over this.
I think they've got a real problem on their hands. And so they have to, it's got to be
antennae for the right thing to do. Nikki Haley has put her hat in the ring and was immediately the victim of an extraordinary onslaught from Don Lemon, who happened to take my old office at CNN, actually. Not that I hold a
Don
torch
Lemon sucks
to that, obviously. But here's the clip of what Don Lemon said about Nikki Haley, who's 51 years old.
Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Can you imagine two women either side of you? And we're at CNN with people like Christiane Amanpour and all these great journalists, all by his yardstick, way past their prime now. I mean, just the crassness of it.
Well, I mean,
dude, Don Lemon is just a dumbass, man. I hate that dude.
I do love the gay man explaining to the two women what a woman in her prime looks like. It's like dude,
and he Googled it.
He Googled it. He had to Google it. So there was that. But yeah, what is amazing about this, as sort of a broader trend, is the amount of hatred that Haley is picking up from the left side of the media, which I think is a tell. So the media have said for years and years and years that they want Trump out. Trump has to go. He's a fascist threat to the United States. And then the minute that a candidate throws her hat in the ring against Trump, she's the first declared candidate against Trump. And the minute that happens, all of a sudden, she's a token, and she's too old for the job at 51, and which suggests to me that a lot of these people have been, crying into their soup a little bit over Donald Trump. They really want him back.
Do you think ultimately the race will be DeSantis against Biden?
I think that's the highest likelihood.
And you think Who wins that?
I think DeSantis wins that race.
Yeah.
I think that Biden's been cruising for a bruising, and he narrowly avoided it in 2020 because the Republicans decided to raid the local homeless shelter for candidates.
Let's come back. We've got to finally get to them. Harry and Meghan and the South Park devastating destruction of everything they represent. We want our privacy! Which the whole world's been chuckling over. We'll talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored, live from New York. Ben Shapiro still with me, so we've got to get to them. Harry and Meghan, unfortunately. Let's take a little look at South Park, just because it makes me howl with laughter every time I look at it.
South Park?
It has been several months now since our beloved Queen has died. Our Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the Prince and his wife.
Oh, basically, they hate Canadians on South Park. Man, I love Canada. I'm just putting that out there. My girlfriend's Canadian. I love Canada, guys. Oh, this is hilarious, bro.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
That's too funny.
Thanks for having us on the show.
In a way, these two absolutely
South Park are the goats.
personify woke culture, don't they? The entitlement, the virtue signaling, the hypocrisy, all of it is encapsulated in these two.
And the untouchability.
Right.
You found out, right? If you
Yes.
say something that crosses them and
Yes.
you hurt their feelings, then they're very upset.
And they believe they have a right to get people removed from their jobs if they don't agree with everything they're saying.
Well, I will say,
Even if they're lying.
I think the public reaction to them is so heartening because they really are quite terrible. I mean, I'm watching this as an American. I have no dog in this particular fight, but I gotta say, they're just the worst. I mean, I actually read Prince Harry's awful memoir, and the number of things that are obviously not true, and the absolute self-delusion and arrogant self-delusion with
And
which
the
he
amount of
addresses these things.
intrusion into his own family's life, quoting family members from funerals and stuff, far more intrusive than anything any
He
tabloids
wants
ever
privacy, but he has very specific memories of using particular facial cream on. I didn't know the word. I'm American. We don't use the word Todger in my country, so I have no idea what. I mean, now I know, but you learn.
Todger, what the hell is
did.
that?
What happens to them now? I mean, they've done all this stuff, Netflix, but it's all basically their entire value is predicated on trashing the family and the monarchy. That's a diminishing returns, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a next step here. I mean, once you actually destroy your source of value, which is the inside view of the monarchy, and you've already spilled that, well, what else is there to do other than stand outside and just shout a lot and then, as South Park implies, seek
Americans,
privacy?
I mean, is there any love for them here or not?
I mean, I can't. I'm searching for it.
Is it now ridicule? Because
yeah, I think it's all ridicule at this point.
I want to talk about Chat GPT, which I don't know much about other than it's a bit worrying when we asked them to write a tweet in my style. And they came back with, I'm tired of these PC snowflakes trying to dictate what I can and can't say. Freedom of speech is under attack. #wake up, which was pretty damn accurate.
Funny.
So
that is so funny.
I interviewed Professor Stephen Hawking before he died. Last TV interview he ever gave. An amazing day with him up in Cambridge. I said, what's the biggest threat to mankind? He said, when AI learns to self-design, that's it. Are we getting anywhere near now?
I mean, it certainly feels like we are approaching it, and this would just be the latest iteration of us unleashing forces that we have no idea the consequences. Right. What those
should we
consequences
be
are.
Unleashing them?
I have some serious doubts about whether we should be unleashing them, at least in this sort of uncontrolled fashion that we're seeing right now. I'm not sure the government is capable of controlling any of this sort of stuff. The thing, honestly, that I'm most worried about is when you combine the rise of internet pornography with the rise of ChatGPT, which is going to, I think, play on the emotions of people using the internet. I mean, we could be one generation away from human extinction at this point. I mean, right. If you look at the actual rates of propagation in the West and you look at the rates of dating and the rates of marriage, like all that stuff is taking a mass dive. And yeah,
I know loads of guys, not anymore, but never had any girlfriends. Like, people don't understand like that. Women will never understand. It's like most guys, I mean, shit, I couldn't go a week without getting laid. I'm not gonna lie, guys. But most guys just don't get laid and shit. Like, most guys just don't, like, have girlfriends, like, or at least regular dates. Like, they just cannot get women. Like, most guys, I would say 70 to 80% of guys are like that. Straight up, man. 70 to 80%. I know a lot of guys would disagree with that. I guarantee you, I've known so many people, man, and none of them are just dating. None of them are getting with women. Like, I've never had without a girlfriend since I was, like, 22 or whatever. Or, well, I've been periods where but I was always dating and trying to get with women. Which isn't a great thing, guys, because I lost a shitload of money. I had no money. That's why I'm doing YouTube, trying to formulate the money back. But honestly, guys, it's crazy, man. It's insane. I don't think like any dudes are getting laid out here. It's crazy, honestly, especially if you're like any sort of like autism or if you're overweight or something like that. It's women don't even want to look at you, man. It's absolutely absurd, and women don't even understand how crazy it is, man. It's actually getting crazy, bro. Like, whew, I gotta make a video on that someday. That shit's nuts, guys. Unless you go out every weekend and you're a super social guy, like, back in college and this kind of thing, like, you're not getting laid for shit, guys. Like, it's hilarious. And women don't understand this. Women can just say they want to get laid and form a line, have kids or whatever. Guys just, bro, like, maybe for the older generation you can have kids easily. Nowadays, bro, it's nuts. Like,
I'm pretty worried about that.
So apart from the imminent end of the entire planet, Shapiro, is there anything positive you can give us?
Well, I mean, the good news is that
you think about the world, what do you feel good about?
My good news is twofold. One is that the era of Anglo-American dominance is not yet over. Right? What we're seeing in Ukraine is actually rather heartening because it suggests that the post-World War II system is not yet dead, so that's a good thing. And the other thing that I think that is good is that I root for reality. Reality always wins. And so all of these kind of forces that we've unleashed, they are running up directly against the rocks of reality, and there will be consequences.
Do you feel the woke
that.
worm is turning? Because I do. Yeah. I feel that the backlash against wokery is now real, and people have basically now said enough.
I think that's right, and I think what's even more heartening is that the people who are pushing it don't realize that yet.
Right.
So they're going to continue to push right into the teeth of the resistance, and when the jaws clamp shut, it's going to get very ugly for them.
That's very true, guys. I see a lot of people turning. A lot of people that were maybe center left, center right, or even on the left, now they're going, this is just getting too crazy, we gotta push back against this type of dumb shit,
I think.
You've made a business now which is generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Extraordinary story, really. Probably all down to the way you chewed me up on CNN all those years ago.
It actually is, guys. He's actually not wrong, because that's what actually made Ben Shapiro popular. That interview was what blew Ben Shapiro up in most people's eyes. He was working before that, what do they say, guys, to get famous and all this kind of thing is when opportunity meets hard work. When you're working really, really hard towards a goal, and then all of a sudden you get that little taste of good luck, like Eminem says, you get that one shot and then you just blow off it. That's what it is, guys. And he is right. He blew up off that interview.
Worked out quite well for me too. So happy days for both of us. But it's an amazing business. Why do you think you've resonated so hugely, not just in America, but around the world?
Again, I think that the central brand, which is that we are very honest about where we are coming from. So we're honest about our own political biases, but we're also trying to be as factual as humanly possible. And we do provide a wide variety of views. I mean, all of our hosts disagree with one another. Candace disagrees with me, disagrees with Matt, disagrees with Jordan.
I think that's the power of your brand. I really do. I think and that's what I try to inspire to be myself. You've got to be fair-minded about it. Right.
I mean, hopefully, if you're opening up that conversation, then people are going to learn more than they came in with.
I think today they will. Ben Shapiro, great to see you.
Great to see you.
All the best.
All right, guys, absolutely legendary. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys think. Do you think that's insane? Do you guys hate Ben Shapiro? Do you guys hate everybody? Tell me what you guys want to think. I want to know your comments down below. Do you guys agree with any of that stuff? Go over to my Patreon as well, guys. Sign up over there. Help support me. I love you all. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.